This will be a whole new offering and probably tap into a market that Nike and other sports apparel companies really haven't before.
You know what the contract is?
I want to say it's $3 million a year for 8 to 10 years. It's almost $30 million, something like that.
Like that, Nike finally came to their senses and gave Adidas the finger with a new Caitlin Clark contract. The most shocking part of this, though, is that Nike is suing Adidas for attempting to sabotage their contract in addition to locking Clark down with a revised agreement.
Leftists are idiots. Idiots. They're not about business. They're not about growing the WNBA. They're about diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is insanity, what they're doing to Caitlin Clark.
These communists are complete Maronis. They're about diversity, equity, and inclusion, not business. What they're doing to Caitlin Clark is insane. Legally, it should be obvious that two rivaling giants cannot just snoop around in each other's athlete rosters like that. Now, Adidas is fumbling to say they only made Clark an offer, which she declined. But let's face it, they are up against the biggest name in the game, Nike.
However, I will say that Caitlin Clark has created more buzz around the basketball landscape and has actually transformed and revived a league that was the WNBA, and she is getting paid a measly $28 million for 8 years as opposed to Wemby's 100.
I will agree that Caitlin Clark has increased awareness of the basketball scene and has truly changed and revitalized the WNBA, despite receiving a pitiful $28 million for 8 years instead of W's $100 million. It's strangely pleasant to see this conflict play out because, in the end, Nike wasn't stupid enough to allow their golden goose slip away, and let's not forget, the internet mocked Nike for nearly making a mistake in the first place. It's been an amusing mess all around.
Season, it was announced that Caitlin Clark signed a massive endorsement deal with Nike. This deal was for 8 years, $28 million with a signature sneaker included. Now, at the time, a lot of us were...
When it was announced during the BBA season that Caitlin Clark had signed a huge endorsement deal with Nike, it was for 8 years, $28 million, and included a signature sneaker. At the time, many of us were men, and honestly, they almost pulled it off. This wasn't just some idle rumors that circulate on Twitter, it was the real deal, and it came with some serious heat. Adidas threw everything they had at Caitlin Clark as if they were attempting to stage a sneaker coup or something, but this wasn't just a casual deal, it was a full-fledged takeover attempt. Adidas wasn't playing nice. They saw the opportunity and went for it while Nike was caught napping.
Nike struck absolute gold when they signed Caitlin Clark to an 8-year, $28 million endorsement deal. So why in the world? And with that, Nike has not done one thing to promote her. We have not seen any commercials, we have not seen any ads, we have not seen any Caitlin Clark merchandise, and we for sure as hell have not seen any Caitlin Clark signature.
However, this is where it becomes even more juicy. Caitlin Clark was already signed by Nike, but rather than treating her like the basketball goddess she is, they managed to ruin everything. They promised her a signature shoe and a whole collection that would be released in 2024, but in typical Nike manner, they botched the launch.
Might not get a signature shoe from Caitlin until 2026 or 2027. I didn't mean for this video to turn into a rant, but this is just another example about how people have fumbled the gift that is
not merely a minor error either. They moved the release date to 2026 or perhaps 2027. That's not merely a postponement. It's a complete contract violation in big letters. How can you screw that up?
Praise, the commercials, the ads, the merch, like all of the things that she should have gotten during this rookie season. Nike hasn't produced one ad or commercial featuring Clark since she turned pro, and despite a signature shoe being part of Nike's agreement with Clark,
based on conversations with people in the know, it indeed has something to do with the WNBA MVP and Nike athlete Asia Wilson. But beyond Wilson, it's about the culture of the company that's more concerned with quelling noise rather than making it, as Nike once used to.
Commend the advertisements. Nike hasn't prepared any advertisements for the merchandiser that she should have received throughout her debut season. one ad or commercial featuring Clark since she turned pro, and despite a signature shoe being part of Nike's agreement with Clark based on conversations with people in the know, it indeed has something to do with the WNBA MVP and Nike athlete A'ja Wilson. But beyond Wilson, it's about the culture of the company that's more concerned with quelling noise rather than making it, as Nike once used to. Apparently, Nike decided that Wilson's shoe needed to come out first. Why, you ask? Because she's the MVP. And let's just say it doesn't have the drama attached to her name like Clark. Yeah, that's the kind of thinking happening behind the scenes, playing it safe with Wilson while completely forgetting that Clark has an army of fans just waiting to crash the internet for her shoe. And if you are shocked, here, get this thing very clear. Clearly, Nike didn't make this call based purely on merit or sales potential. Nope, according to insiders, they bumped A'ja Wilson's shoe to the front of the line because, brace yourself, she didn't have the same racial tensions attached to her name like Caitlin Clark did. Yeah, let that sink in for a minute. Adidas didn't sit around while Nike messed up Caitlin Clark's shoe deal. Instead, they slid in with ease and put a huge offer on the table for Clark. Bigger money, bigger perks. Basically everything Nike should have done from the beginning. But didn't Adidas see their golden opportunity and didn't waste a single second making their move? Nike believed it was a smart move to push Clark's shoe back despite her massive fan base, all because of media-fueled narrative talk about playing it safe in the most ridiculous way possible. Shoe, I would wear this.
Currently the best player in the WNBA? Yes. Is Caitlin Clark currently the face of the WNBA? Yes. Do I think if A'ja Wilson dropped a shoe and Caitlin Clark dropped a shoe today at the very same time, that Caitlin Clark would outsell A'ja's shoe by 100 times?
However, Adidas really outdid themselves here by giving Clark creative freedom over her own marketing plan, even as Nike was still mired in corporate red tape. Adidas went all out to give Clark the freedom that athletes rarely have. It wasn't just about wearing shoes. Clark was also given the opportunity to create her own advertisements, build her own brand, and communicate with her devoted following personally. Nike didn't anticipate it at all.
Hype that Caitlin Clark had going into this season, we will not see that again. She came off of playing in a national championship game that had over 20 million people.
We won't see the same level of excitement that Caitlin Clark had leading up to this season. She just finished playing in a national championship game that drew over 20 million spectators, and then there's the shoe release schedule. You may recall how Nike kept pushing Clark's signature shoe farther into the future, from 2024 to 2025, possibly even 2026. However, Adidas wasn't participating in that game, so they assured her of a quicker release date, so her fans wouldn't have to wait a century to get their hands on her shoes. While Nike was still fumbling with documents attempting to come up with a launch plan, Adidas realized that Clark's followers weren't going to wait around forever and were eager to get her sneaker as soon as possible. She deserves it. Nike, on the other hand, was in full-on panic mode because they knew they were in danger of a PR disaster if Clark chose to accept A'ja Wilson's offer, because in a head-to-head shoe launch between the two, Clark's fan base was on another level, and Nike knew that if both shoes dropped at the same time, Clark's would sell out in a heartbeat, leaving Wilson's gathering dust. What did Nike do? They went into full damage control mode, trying desperately to revive the original contract they'd neglected after months of pushing Clark to the sidelines. Now, they were trying to get her shoe launch back on track for a 2024 release date, the same date they had initially promised her, but then bailed on, and they were all in on getting her shoe to market as quickly as possible because they knew if they lost her to Adidas, it would be a disaster for them.
She deserves it! She deserves it!
They have no plans for a Caitlin Clark shoe despite earning consensus WNBA Rookie of the Year. Why not? Well, Nike's official explanation is blatantly false. Are they concealing the fact that sports are becoming less popular? No. Adidas has done fairly well over that time despite terminating their partnership with. But let's be honest for a moment. Was it too little, too late? Fans of Clark weren't entirely pleased with how she had been treated, and they had witnessed Nike sideline Clark to promote Wilson. Now that Adidas was involved, Nike was acting more like the antagonist in this tale. It wasn't just about sneakers anymore. It was about loyalty, respect, and how Nike had handled their rising star behind the scenes. After Billie Jean King, an Adidas ambassador, tweeted that she was out here celebrating Caitlin Clark's accomplishments, the conversation really heated up. Insiders were talking about Nike's last-ditch attempt to sweeten the deal, allegedly offering bonuses, quicker production schedules, and a huge marketing campaign. Given all the racial and social dynamics already at play, it is obvious that Blitz was throwing everything at the wall in the hopes that something would stick. They couldn't afford to lose Clark, not only because she was a baller, but also because of what she stood for off the court. Losing her to Adidas would severely harm Nike's reputation, and it all happened because experts were stating these things.
Winning unanimous WNBA Rookie of the Year, they've got no plans for a Caitlin Clark shoe. Why not? Well, the official reason from Nike is an obvious lie. What are they hiding? Is sports losing popularity? No, Adidas has done pretty well over that time despite ending their partnership with...
But there were rumors of a lawsuit, as if that weren't enough drama. On top of everything else, there was talk of a legal showdown between two of the biggest sports brands in the world. Brewing, yes, Nike wasn't just sitting around trying to fix the deal. They were also getting ready to go after Adidas legally. They were accusing Adidas of contract manipulation, essentially saying that Adidas had violated certain clauses in Clark's original Nike contract. Nike wasn't about to let Adidas swoop in and steal their athlete without a fight.
LeBron James had his own signature shoe his rookie year. So 20 years ago, Nike was nimble enough and had enough vision to see that, hey, let's get LeBron's shoe out here. This guy's going to be a big deal. They can't do this for Caitlin Clark.
And if this is what I want to say, it's $3 million a year for 8 to 10 years, which is nearly $30 million. This was no longer just about shoes. This was a full-fledged corporate war. Adidas made their move, and now Nike was trying to claw their way back into the market. Whether or not they could actually stop Adidas from signing Clark was still up in the air, but one thing was certain: Nike wasn't going down without a fight. If you say it wasn't that big of a deal, you should know that these huge endorsement contracts aren't just casual agreements. Their airtight clause secured a significant Adidas sponsorship agreement. This partnership is a game changer. It's a huge win for both Clark and women's basketball. And guess what? Nike has that exact clause in Caitlin Clark's contract that probably states loud and clear that Clark cannot endorse any other brands, especially their biggest rival Adidas, while under contract. It's standard stuff, but Adidas apparently decided to push their luck anyhow. So what is Adidas being accused of? Nike isn't just making general complaints here, and they have good reason to be angry. According to rumors, Adidas has been trying to persuade Clark that she deserves more than what Nike is providing. Some rumors even speculate that Adidas may have offered her a few extra benefits to entice her. Sure, the sports war game is cutthroat, but this time, Nike claims Adidas went too far.
I want to say it's $3 million a year for 8 to 10 years. It's almost $30 million.
Adidas should have known better than to tamper with that exclusivity clause in Clark's initial Nike contract, but they're allegedly using some backstage tactics to snatch Clark away. It's like watching two fighters in the ring, except one of them is acting shady and Nike is pointing the finger, but we're far past rumors. According to sources, Nike's legal team is currently working non-stop to prepare for a lawsuit against Adidas, alleging contract tampering. If that seems like a big deal, it is, as Nike's successful prosecution could upend not only the sports industry, but the entire endorsement market. The world imagined two of the biggest companies vying for the attention of one of the most attractive basketball players. Things are about to get serious, and Caitlin Clark is right in the center of it.
This will be a whole new offering and probably tap into a market that Nike and other sports apparel companies really haven't before. Obviously, little girls are going to wear them. I think plenty of dudes are going to wear them. You're just going to see those things in high demand.